what's up, everybody? You tuned in to another episode of Strategic Moves. I'm your host, Ken Dow. This is the place where we bring art, culture, politics, and business all together, and we do it every week right here on this channel. But when I'm not shooting this podcast, I am the owner of Strategic Resources, where we specialize in political campaigns, government, and public relations. Been doing it over this state for over 25 years. Met some interesting people along the way, and I want to make your next move a strategic move. So this program gives me an opportunity to do just that. I go around, I talk to people that I met. We come in, we talk about our stories, and maybe it's something out of it you will get that will help you in your business or your personal life. So if that sounds like something you'd be interested in, all I need you to do is hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and the notification bell as well, so that you'll know the next time this program is coming out. So today, we're continuing our little series we're doing called Cutting the Stigma on African American Male Vote. We're going around the state of Ohio, and we're having barbershop talks in various different places all around the state of Ohio to talk about what's going on with the African American male vote. People believe that African American men are not voting, and if we are voting, it's this mass exodus from one party to the next. So today we're going to talk to some gentlemen who can help us try to cut the stigma on African American vote. And I'm doing it here with the millennials today. Damn millennials. That's what I call it. Damn millennials. We're here with them today, and we're going to sit down and we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on with this male black vote. So I want to introduce our guests to us as we go down. I'm going to start going to my right here. I got Minister Cal Early. How you doing today, sir? How's your mental with this?
Great. Came from preaching, came right here, so appreciate it to be here.
What you preach on this morning?
Mentally mangled.
Mentally mangled.
Mental health is faith. Black men need to understand that God cares about their mental health, and we need to make sure we spread that message, even as you all are mangling us through this voting process.
So this is what I want everybody to do. We're going to have to talk a little louder too today, okay, guys? Because we got mics out, so let's make sure. We also have our state representative here. He's working with us on our program. Oh, this program is being sponsored by one of our sponsors is Voices for a Better Future PAC, and State Representative Terrence Upchurch is one of our voices and faces for that PAC. Terrence, what's going on, Representative? How you doing today?
Good, man. Good to be here. Excited about this conversation. Thank you for having me.
And now we got this guy here next to me is the councilman. I believe, are we in the war? We're close to it.
This war 7, we're on the border.
We're on the border, we're close to it, and we have none other than one of the youngest council members, if not the youngest council member in Cleveland City Council, and been one of the most voiceful one right now on a few issues that's been taking place over the city. And so how you doing today, Councilman? What's going on in your world?
I'm doing great. Great Sunday, great conversation, great opportunity to be here. Anytime I get an invite from Ken Dow, it must I answer with a yes.
Oh, yes, beautiful. I like to hear that. I like to hear that. And that next to him is a guy I met doing some stuff, and he's doing some good things in our community. He had a program that I thought was interesting. It's called Ghetto Therapy, and he's doing that over in Richard Starr's ward, on Ward 5 here in Cleveland, and he has a program where he works with the community on therapy, pretty similar to Mentally Mangled. These two gentlemen are working hard in the mental phase of what's going on in the community. Well, how's your mental?
I'm good, man. I'm just glad to be here with a bunch of sharp brothers, man. Just being on the same panel what's going on. It's an honor to be sitting next to these guys inside the chair and inside this barbershop. So blessed to be here.
Excellent. And closing out our panel is going to be our newest elected official on the ballot coming up this year. He's actually will be my county council member out in Cleveland Heights. He's been here in Cleveland doing good work for some time now, and now he has an opportunity to get on the ballot. You have a chance to vote for him this year. That's Michael Hauser. What's going on with you, Mike? How's the campaign going?
So far, so good. Ken, I appreciate you inviting me. It's my first time on the show. I appreciate you.
All right, fellas, we're going to jump right into this because we want to really get started on what was going on. Got some questions I got for you guys, so I'm going to be lowering into my notes every once in a while and go from there. So we're going to get started, and anybody want to start off jumping into this first question, go. How do you guys believe the performance of each of the candidates from the last debate shape your perception of leadership and their ability, particularly addressing issues?
That's a very important question. I had the honor of watching the debate with State Representative Terrence Upchurch. We threw some burgers on the grill, chilled, hung out, and we got ready for the debate. Which was interesting to me about that debate, it was not one of the best debates you ever seen. It was not a well put happened being the first debate, but what I noticed was, it seemed as if it was two older guys arguing about golf and trying to run for one of the highest ranking elected official seat for the country. I left the debate disappointed, but also as I dialed in and made a post about the debate, two things came out. One, former President Donald Trump, he had an agenda to try to make everybody believe that our current president was just an old guy who can't do a job. Two, being old, sometimes you're not as sharp with your response time as you normally is. That does not mean you don't have the knowledge or the wisdom or can't do something. So that right there was something that I left concerned, but I do believe that Joe Biden, President Biden, throughout the whole debate, as he went into the debate, he was able to give facts on things that he has done. If you look at the different ARPA funding that has been put into place inside of our cities, inside of our neighborhoods, we wouldn't have that money if it wasn't for President Joe Biden. If you look at the student loan forgiveness that has taken place throughout this country, where I have friends, family members who have gotten their student loans relieved or refreshed because of President Joe Biden, that is things he has been able to do. And just being also someone who just really understands what it takes to lead. Whether you say he's a little bit older or not, that does not mean he can't get the job done. And if you look at our country, he has been doing the job. So I am a full supporter of President Joe Biden. I'm not going to support someone who can just get up in a debate and try to make somebody look like a fool by just coming up with lies and trying to humiliate our great leader that we have in President Joe Biden. So I'm with him.
Pastor Early, on your perception, what was your perception of the debate, and from what people you talked to, what did they perceive?
I did not watch the debate.
Okay.
Did not watch the debate. Had no interest in it. And as an independent voter, I'm stuck because I don't feel led to push my people toward any particular candidate. I plan on staying mute and quiet about the presidential election because we got to be clear. There's other things on the ballot that we have to vote for. So we have great voices up here that will push President Biden or Trump or whoever they want to support. But for me, it's what's down the ballot that becomes most important because for me, it's clear that we have two candidates that cannot lead.
Let me ask the question, Walt, did you watch the debate? I should have asked you all that before we started. Did you watch the debate, Walt?
Very similar to Pastor. I did not watch the debate.
Interesting.
With all transparency, I'm not that much into the national politics of it. I'm more so into local.
That's
Councilman Richard Starr in Ward 5. So I'm not really into the national part of it, but I'm on top of the local part. So no, I didn't watch it.
How about you, Mr. Hauser?
Yeah, I watched the debate.
And how did you feel?
What stood out to me, I watched it with a group as well, and as someone who's currently running for office, I just said to the group, could you imagine if I was at Cleveland Heights Democratic Club and they asked me a question, and I just answered whatever I wanted to answer, and did not answer the question at all. And to me, that's what President Trump did all night. At the end, the CNN take I thought was good, and I think President Biden needs to push that it's bigger than just one person. Richard has an assistant, Representative Upchurch has an assistant, and it's a group, it's not just one person. I think if he's able to push that the next debate, he might have some success. They might take his ideas, but then there's also an implementation step that also happens. And so I think if he can get that message across next time, he might be successful.
What about you, Representative?
I did watch the debate. In terms of the overall performance, let's just be clear. I think we can all agree that President Biden has never been a strong debater.
Yeah.
And he's ran for president several times. And in debates prior, he was not the best performer on the stage. However, I think an election is just not based on your debate performance, right? The president has a record of delivering for the American people. Councilman Starr mentioned the ARPA dollars. Those ARPA dollars directly went to the community, and there's impacts, right? Student loan forgiveness. Thousands of people have had substantial amounts of student loans forgiven. First-time home buyer tax credits. That's huge for our community. Now, it does not completely solve the housing issue, but it's a step in the right direction. And then his opponent, the former president, you could tell that he was not prepared in terms of doing research. I don't even think he can recite what he did when he was president. There was just no preparation whatsoever. And Councilman said, this President Biden's 81 years old. God willing, I live to be 81. I wish I could stand on stage 90 minutes, right? And like he said, the president said, his delivery may not be as sharp as it once was. He may not move as quick as he once did. But do I trust him sitting behind the Resolute desk? Absolutely. This was the man that sat next to President Obama during some of his biggest decisions, the raid to kill Osama bin Laden, the auto bailout. This is the most experienced president we've had in a long time. This man was in the United States Senate for 30 some odd years. So I absolutely trust his ability to do the job.
So Cal, let me ask you this question again. As a result of, I know you didn't watch the debate and you made it clear how you feel about it, but how do you feel about those candidates and their impact on voter turnout down the road? Because to you, what is important is the fact that there are down ticket things that are taking place. So how do you think what happened there, and you didn't watch it, and you had your reasons why, and there's a lot of people who had the same reasons, and not saying any of that. So how do you think that affects what's go down ticket, and what you think they can do to maybe get you more interested in looking at that? And same will go to you, Walton. He's finished. Same question to you.
So I think there's a simple answer to that, which is local candidates have to push the local ballot. Democratic ticket, the Republican ticket is a national ticket. They send their own staff in here to message for those individuals during campaign. What becomes important for us is that we use our local resources to talk about local judges, issues that are on the ballot, and things that matter to us locally. And oftentimes what will happen is the national will come in and sweep up our local elected officials, and there's no shining the light on those issues when it comes to down ballot. I think that the money, comes in on a big scale, on a national level. Send those resources down, yes, to help those candidates that are running. I think Councilman Starr was just talking about this earlier, to help those candidates that are running on a national level, but you also have to empower the local politics as well, the local issues as well. So if you say education matters on a national level, then send resources to help levies pass on the local level, right? Now we're talking about not people, but more so policy that people on the ground can connect to, not personalities of the people that are running. Let me say this for me, I can't go into my neighborhood and convince people to vote for Joe Biden. I can't convince them to vote for Trump, but I can convince them to get out and vote for a public library levy, their local person that they've grown up with that's running for city council. I can get them to vote for a school levy if we wanted to do that. But it becomes very difficult to sell a person and not a plan.
What about you, Walt?
I'm similar. Like I said, I'm similar to that. I'm not the traditional, the guy that's into the politics as much. But what I can say is that being in Ward 5, I come from that community where as if majority of us, a lot of us in public housing feel as if our vote don't count, right? So I come from that background. I come from where around the time election did come in 2020, and I was on the campaign with Richard Starr, councilman currently. He was deep and very big on civic engagement. So the civic engagement piece was teaching precinct leaders, executive precinct leader, and I had the privilege to become that. And when I became that, I had the influence to encourage others to vote for our councilman in Ward 5. Again, I'm not traditionally into the politics, you know what I'm saying? I'm speaking from that aspect of our vote don't count, but actually seeing our vote count. So that's the only thing that I can honestly speak to in this conversation, is just being a believer of local voting. I'm not big on national.
And I understand that's been a conversation among most of the conversations we've been having, and most people have been saying. Mike, let me ask you this, man. The debate lacks substantial discussion on key policies. What specific policies do you think should have been addressed, especially for African American community? And let's throw it a little further, that even African American men might even attach to it. And Richard, you and Upchurch, okay?
So for me, what the debate lacked, with Councilman Starr, it reminded me of two older white men sitting up here arguing about who had a better golf swing. And I think what President Obama did and why he was so important was a lot of times, like, we saw so I got in politics because of President Obama. He became president in 2008. I was at Kent State University. I didn't know what I wanted to do with my life, but I knew I wanted to help people. And so after graduation, I worked for a bunch of different campaigns and got involved, and that's how I'm able to sit with you gentlemen here today. And so I think policies that affect us, whether it's housing, as Upchurch talked about, or education, as I really talked about, your everyday policy that affects your everyday people is important. I don't care who wins a golf match between Donald Trump and Joe Biden. I don't care. And a lot of times we look at the topic ticket as not important, but it's all truly important. And just in closing, who you pick as president determines who is your Supreme Court judges, who determines if they're going to reject Roe versus Wade. So it all is correlated. We all need to be involved and do our part.
Councilman? I would say it's
Policy.
mainly standpoint, I definitely wanted to see and hear infrastructure policy addressed to understand how we can get more roads, get more buildings that need to be upgraded. Also, I wanted to see more about the housing disparity. I believe in the urban neighborhoods, they are being discriminated. Redlining it still exists today. When you have large financial institutions refusing to lend in urban neighborhoods, but they prance around and love to sponsor events, acting like they're doing something. So those things need to be addressed, and those need to be challenged, not just from a local level, from a county level, as well as up to the civil rights. You got to think about when in the 60s, the folks who have given us the opportunity to sit in this barbershop today, who fought for us, they was fighting to make sure I can go out and get and secure a mortgage so I can get a house. That certain banks are not lending to you based on your zip code, based on the area you live at, and based on how much you are needing to borrow. So those things need to be addressed. But then also from an educational standpoint, making sure we have opportunity to advance education, whether it's four-year degree or trade initiative, those need to be more available on a broader scale and need to be educated more. But then also, no one should be in jail for marijuana, flat out. If you look at it from the standpoint of where our country has gone, we have people who are locked up right now for marijuana, but it is legal all around different places inside of this country. So those things need to be there. And then also the education for Black Americans, if you have a felony or not, or anybody that's having a felony, you should be allowed to vote. And that shouldn't be across the board. It shouldn't be up to the state to determine if they're going to allow former felons or whatever you want to classify these individuals, rather than say if they're worthy or should be allowed to vote. Everyone should be able to vote to be able to get involved in what is going on in our country.
And why you say infrastructure, how that relate to African Americans?
Man, because when you start thinking about the lending, then you start thinking about buildings, and you start thinking about the infrastructure. We got so many streets in the city of Cleveland. We got over 11,000 streets. And then you look at us from the revenue that we generate in our city, it's not enough to get 11,000 streets done. So where you have is now you're picking and choosing which 8 streets each year you're trying to get done. So that's why I believe voting and civic engagement on all levels matter, because there's only so much money that the city can generate, there's only so much money that the county can generate, then there's so much money that the state can generate. But if we have everything in line in place with people who can work together on each level, therefore that lobbying for the dollars and advocating for more dollars for issues all the way on the local level can actually get there. Because most of the time, from the federal level, they may pass money down to the state, but then there's a fight for the state representatives in your district just to be able to secure that money to your city or to your county, which then it becomes very challenging. So imagine if you had someone that you know, for example, you're sitting there with me, a local councilman on city level, then you have a county council member on form, soon to be councilman, because we're going to speak it in existence. Then we have a state representative. When I need something from the state, I'm picking up the phone and call Rep. Terrence Upchurch. Yo, I'm working on this project. I'm working on this Warner Swayze project on mixed housing units, 140 units. How much money can you get from me from the state? I'm getting from the city, we putting up $4 million. Can you match me with $4 million? Can you match me with $2 million? What can you do to help me close this so I can get this building and this project off the ground? So
you're a little more straightforward when you ask me for money, though. You know, we personal.
Yeah, but having that is very important. So from the policy standpoint, I need to be able to do that. Prime example, when everybody voted for President Barack Obama, the next year they didn't go vote at the same alarming rate that they did for him. So therefore, Congress was giving them a spanking all them years.
Yep.
And it's, well, what did he do for black people? Did you understand what he was working on, attempting to do? And it was getting shut down and rejected. So we had to fight for 2012, go back, and then we had to educate people. You got to go again next year, and you got to understand we vote every year. Ain't no off year. So,
let me hop in, because there's a difference too. I think when we look at Trump showed us the power of the executive pen, which some would say he's being a bully, he's not following the process. But when you want to get your policy through and you have the power to do it, and you have a time frame to get it done, you got to execute for your base, for your people. And so on a local level, down here, we are going to say, what did Obama do? Because we saw Trump do whatever the hell he wanted to do, and we had a black man in power that didn't utilize the power that we saw white people use. Now, At that point, it's not about race. He's the black man. He is the commander-in-chief of the United States of America. That pen becomes his power. So I'm saying, even when we look at Joe Biden and we talk about some of the stuff, yes, that he did do with the executive orders, but could he have done more? And I think that becomes the other thing about policy, because then I get to see what my president is doing. But then on another policy piece, again, I'm talking to people who are younger, you're talking about millennials, it takes so much to break down infrastructure, gerrymandering, right? So why are we not having issues on the ballot or having conversations from the state, federal, even city level on child support, on the opioid crisis, on dollars for mental health and resources for alternative to lockup? See, now I can start having those conversations around criminal justice reform, but now I can make it make sense to my people while leading up to, well, this is what your leader did, your president did, your councilman did, your state rep did. Because when we have the power, sometimes we don't utilize it like they do on the other side.
Let's spare that there. So we're going to go into the next question, and we'll follow back up on the next one with you, Church. I was going to ask you a question, Pastor Early. How do you believe that faith-based leaders should be advocating for, do better to advocate for mental health policies from a national level?
I think we do a good job at advocating for mental health dollars. One,
And walk this to you also.
in the realm of the black church here in Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, I can tell you that discussion is fairly new when we talk about faith and mental health. And so now we're just now in that process of really opening our doors as mental health centers, because we have so many churches on the corners. It's like, why do we just have it on church on Sunday when we could actually be a mental health community center during the week? Resources are there. I think churches and nonprofit organizations as a whole need to learn how to access those resources, right? And then have the structure and infrastructure to maintain and sustain those resources. The church is a nonprofit organization. They can apply for nonprofit dollars. Oftentimes we don't have the infrastructure in the black church to sustain those dollars, therefore we don't get them. So the conversation is happening on a federal level. I think it's a matter of healthcare. This falls under healthcare. And when we look at healthcare in the black community, I think that we can advocate better, not just for mental health, but local hospitals and clinics in our community, and also under healthcare, looking at how we have food deserts and using federal dollars to build quality grocery stores with quality food in black communities. There's no way we're going to be mentally strong if we're continuously hungry and poisoned by the food that we eat from our corner stores. So on a federal level, I think we as a faith community can advocate very strong for local food deserts, local clinics, and making sure that overall healthcare is a priority in the black community.
Would you say?
I was just in a conversation the other day. This was just in my stories. It's crazy because I was just in a conversation with CMSD, and it was about bringing ghetto therapy free and open to the public therapy service inside of the school that I graduated from, which is out for the finish. The conversation was all great. It was good up until I said, well, with all transparency, I have a record, and my record is 10 years old, right? But when I said that, it was a stutter. Let me see if I can. And what I've been talking about is the disconnect between grassroots organizations and systems.
Right.
And I think that without grassroots organizations and systems collaborating, then a change in the environment doesn't happen. And I got some feedback of that's a state issue. That's a state issue. Go to the state, it's not a CMSD. But it is an us issue when I say Cleveland is just about 370,000, just over 370,000 residents, and only 13,000 residents are registered to vote. That becomes an us problem because we have the resources. We know exactly what needs to be done, but we're not showing up and we're not performing. So I feel like from a mental health perspective, from a ghetto therapy perspective, like my experience that a lot of us are not coming out in numbers. A lot of us are not showing up in order to even get things passed out. I think we're not organized inside of environment on the ground from a grassroots perspective. We need to organize more in order to even go to a state level and talk about what we need inside of our environments. So the disconnect between grassroots organizations and systems is one of the biggest problems that I'm faced with.
Do you see a big disconnect, Mike, as it relates to community and organizations and the grassroots community are all trying to connect and collaborate?
Yeah, and I think we all can do a better job. At the county, I think we can do better. We have the Adams Board, and we also have Ohio Guidestone. But as councilman, that's one thing I look forward to working on and addressing. To Kyle's point, I think we have a lot of resources in our community. I took a tour at the Fannie Lewis Reentry Center I do believe it's on 79th. And it's a huge building, great resources, great people, great staff. It was empty. As much homelessness, as much people need help, it's empty. It's an empty building sitting in the hood, and nobody goes there. And so I remember asking them, like, how are you getting the word out? And they say they go to resource fairs. And a lot of times when you go to resource fairs, it's usually us there. It's people already involved. Instead of going grassroots, going where the people are, going to 2100 Lakeside and really recruiting and helping people. And so I definitely think it's a disconnect, and I look forward to working to improve it on that.
Representative Upchurch, what additional support do you think is needed from the federal leaders to address the systemic issues that these gentlemen are just talking about that can be heightened by the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus using your position as president of the OLBC? How do you see that you can utilize that to help address some of those issues we just talked about?
I think OLBC is a voice for African Americans across the state of Ohio, right? So we have a unique understanding of the issues that are impacting Black people across the state. So one thing that we've been trying to do is just stay in contact with our federal elected officials to make sure that they're advocating for these issues through funding so that they can partner with different organizations. We just talked about the disconnect between grassroots and systems, right? And there's a variety of different ways that I think that we can fix that disconnect. But it's very important that our federal elected officials are advocating on our behalf so that those dollars can come to these grassroots organizations, right? So that they can work with the systems to ultimately create policy that changes outcomes. Because somewhere along the line, we're missing the mark. And I think that's where the Black Caucus can come into play, being in constant communication with Chantel Brown, Amelia Sykes, Joyce Beatty, and even Sherrod Brown.
We're going to take a quick stop for 1 second. What's going on?
Yeah, he had to open the door. So I want you to ask that question again. Let's take that from the top. Yeah.
Church, I'm going to ask you that question one more time.
2, 1.
Representative Upchurch, how do you believe utilizing your position as president of the OLBC that you can utilize that position to try to help get better policies or advocate for policies that can help us with some of the issues that the gentleman was just talking about?
Yeah, so the Ohio Legislative Black Caucus, like I said, we're a voice for Black folks across the state of Ohio. Many of our districts are predominantly African Americans, so we have a unique understanding of the issues that are impacting our community. Housing, education, workforce, reentry. There's a long list of issues that are impacting the quality of life for Black folks across the state of Ohio. When we are down in Columbus, that's what we're advocating. We're advocating for dollars for reentry, for workforce, for housing, and access to home ownership opportunities. We're the biggest advocates at the state level for Black folks.
Let me ask you, talk about for you, Councilman. The debate touched on racial injustice and police brutality just a little bit. How do you evaluate each of the candidates' stances on those issues?
From the debate standpoint, from the level of the president, no matter who the president is, they're not going to come down with solutions about what's going on in the police forces. If you've seen from the past few years and decades, rather, African Americans have been getting killed by police officers, oftentimes depending on not mattering who is the president. I don't think that is a top priority for any candidate. I think that is something that we the people must demand on a local level, on the county level, to be able to get that done for us.
How do you feel, Pastor Early, just based on just overall the president's basic view on police brutality, and you sitting on that commission as well? So, just your thoughts on it.
Can't get around the commission at all. Huh?
Can't get around it.
Well, one, President Trump has said that if he's president, he would give all officers immunity. Right now, again, President Joe Biden has the power of the pen to change policing in America.
How would you like to see police change?
One, officers should not have immunity. They should go through a legal process like any and everyone else when they break the law. Number two, I think when we look at the Cleveland Police Commission here in Cleveland, we're doing the best we can. We're doing the best that we can with what we have and just becoming a new commission. We've made some strides. I introduced legislation that allowed for the commission to work with the Cleveland Police Department on all general policing orders. That's never been done. We passed that legislation, so now any general policing orders where all policy is followed when it comes to the police department must come through the police commission. We're working on how to even make sure that we cater to our officers' mental health. They have a stressful job. Officers that live in my community, they come to me, they come to our church, they talk about how they're working 18, 20-hour shifts. That has since been changed as well. Policing on a federal level, I'm going to agree with Councilman Starr that it's not going to be addressed. Law enforcement is big dollars when it comes to elections and politics, let's just be honest. But on a local level, when you start implementing stuff like Community Police Commission, and if you have the right people on that commission that are knowledgeable about the issues of the consent decree and things of that nature, you can bring about significant change on a local level, which is not adversarial to police, right? So me being on the commission, I'm not adversarial to police. I do care about the welfare of our officers, but I equally care about the welfare of our community members and making sure they're safe. And when officers are not held accountable, that makes our communities even unsafer. So that's my stance on that.
Mike, what's your thoughts on, in the debate they talked a little bit about the immigration issue as well as incarcerated individuals. What is your thoughts on their stance and how do you think that's affecting the way African American men are approaching the situation? One with immigration, we know that there in some cities, that's a big deal where they're talking about mounds or thousands of immigrants that are coming in and receiving public assistance and things of that nature and issues, and we all can chime in on this one. So let's start off with you, Mike. What's your thoughts on that as well as incarcerated individuals?
So start off with immigration, in my opinion, and I think, I don't know, Donald Trump said something about like black jobs or something. Immigrants are still in black jobs. And so I think
we're still trying to figure out
What a black job.
I'm doing my black job.
Well, I think he's doing his black job now. I'm laying on there cutting hair. He said that's a black job.
so I think opportunity is important no matter what race, particularly to the African American community. Particularly here in Cleveland, I don't see an immigration county we just open like an immigration center, and I know here to the city of Cleveland, but I don't see that here in Cleveland. And I think what both former and current President Biden missed is definitely issues and things that affect me every day. To your point, our reentry community is in need. I'm an advocate. I've put on, Councilman Starr and I have put on different programs across the city to welcome our reentry community. If you have served your time, you should be able to participate in everything else like everyone else. As someone who worked for CMS, even if you have a record, you should be able to help because you have knowledge and insight that someone else doesn't have. And those type issues, to me, are important. I will say this too, as a city of Cleveland, we have a black mayor, we have black judges, we have black city council people. We can do more as well. To Kyle's point, we have the executive PM, and so we can ban the box, we can do more to encourage and get our re-entry and second chance community more involved and civically engaged as well.
You deal with a lot of incarcerated individuals, I'm sure, coming through your program. How do you think this affects them, and what do you think they could do more to engage them to feel more included?
I do work with a lot of incarcerated individuals, and I believe that I talk a lot about it with cases such as, let's say, a child molestation case. Those are people who I feel that shouldn't be involved in schools and being able to do grassroots organizations or whatever you do fall into schools. But if you have a nonviolent offense, and like Richard stated, like Councilman said with the weed or whatever, like 20 years, 15 years, I believe that they should have the same equal opportunities as every individual that's even in that field of work. That's what I believe. I feel like we shouldn't hold restrictions on these residents who really been reincarcerated. What's the word I'm looking for? Not institutionalized, but rehabilitated. Yeah, we shouldn't hold them accountable if they're haven't caught any cases in the last 10 to 15 years. I think they should have the same opportunities as all the other workers that's in the same field. But child molestation on the record and different things like that, I don't support that. I don't feel like they should be inside the spaces with other regular individuals.
What about you, Kyle? What's your thoughts?
Yeah, I think when we look at re-entry, for the economy of Cleveland, Cuyahoga County, and even the state, that would be one of the greatest economic boosters that we could have when it comes to, again, securing tax dollars as we should in revenue for our government. But we don't allow for the economy to rise because we hinder the job production or the job opportunities that come from those that have earned a trade while inside right? So they're not coming out uneducated. They're just not coming out to opportunity, right? And now that's one area. So we talk about job. Now let's talk about housing. Right now, our program through Office of the Faith-Based Initiatives, we're finding homes for expecting mothers, right? And realizing that there's no homes out there, and housing is like very limited. So now when you ask someone to come home, you give them a job, but you don't give them a place to stay. Again, you're not securing a tax base that can help your local government, county government, and state government, because we're not affording them the opportunities. So just saying re-entry and somebody coming home and saying, okay, I went to some programs. Well, they went to programs while they were incarcerated. They got certificates while they were incarcerated. And I'm not minimizing the resources of those programs that are needed when they come home, but what they need most is a job opportunity. So if the state says we have, you can correct me if I'm wrong, it's maybe over 400 jobs through Ohio Job Needs, right? And show us the jobs that pay $50,000 or more, and then OLBC can work with the county and local government to have those conversations about how the money's going to go, but talk to the local nonprofit organizations who are going to say, I got jobs right here. They start at 50 grand. They're going to accept your felony, and oh, by the way, you get to move into housing with 3 months free rent so you can stack your money. Now you've actually re-entered somebody into the community instead of a re-entry talk about what you need to be doing when you get out. Negro, I already learned that when I was in there.
Exactly. What do you think, Mr. Upchurch?
I agree with everything the pastor just said. I think reentry is more than just learning a trade while you're inside, but you have to be able to assimilate when you come outside. And that means segueing into a job, and not even necessarily a job, but a career. Using the trade that you've learned. Being able to afford housing so you can pay your mortgage and then pull the equity out of your home and create generational wealth. Again, it's more than just learning carpentry, and I just use that as a general example while you're inside. It's coming out and being able to walk into an opportunity after you've done your time. Because their punishment is relinquishing their freedom for a certain period of time. Once that period of time is up, allow them to go back into society and be productive citizens.
And I think too, this is a great example of how the pipeline can work. As you on the OLBC side, you all have resources for re-entry. There should be a conversation between the three of you all of a pilot program where we could buy 10 homes, provide spaces for these individuals that's coming home, and you all set the pilot. Because a lot of times we'll talk about these ideas, and again, the power's in the room right now. So that needs to be a conversation. And again, you got two advocates right here. That's a message we can take back. And that has nothing to do with the president, but it has everything to do with how dollars come down the pipeline. And we're able to explain to our people, now this is why you got to get involved in civic engagement. Because getting involved, like we are, opened up this conversation, and now it's opening up an opportunity for people who are not even in this room. And we're fighting for people who don't even know we're fighting for them.
You start. Do you think there's more that government can do and more that the city can do to piggyback on what Cal was saying and everyone else to try to get these programs going for incarcerated individuals?
I think the government is doing what the laws that were created and meant to do. When you look at a lot of policies that are written in days that no longer exist. So when you think about reentry, you got to talk about the basic needs that you heard Pastor and State Representative Upchurch mention. You got to talk about the basic needs. And when you think about the system, I come from a home where my background stems from my father being in and out of prison my entire life up until 2017 coming home. So that's one of the reasons that I have recently joined the Reentry Coalition to be able to, Cuyahoga County, thanks to the support of our soon-to-be County Councilman Michael Hauser, so I can be able to dig deep into the resources. The problem that I think we have is all these resources, and they are available, but nobody is utilizing. They're not meeting people where they need to be met at. They're not actually going out there into the community and getting those people. The thing is, people talk about throughout this country, throughout this city, is violence. They say violence is up, and then you see somebody come up with some numbers that say it's down, but then in reality, I hear gunshots every night. So nobody can tell me violence is down in our city when I'm hearing it every night, and I'm making calls to the police, and everyone in the community is not. Some people are, and then some are not. So when you think about why the violence continued to go up, because once they came home from prison, the opportunities are not there for them because it's only look good so you can be able to get an organization some money. So from pastor standpoint, working with my office and working with state representative office, but also the county office is something that we're putting in motion. I understand the basic need. When you come home from prison, some people don't get a mom to come home to. Some people don't get a sister to come home to. Some people may be coming home with somebody they were dealing with who rode the bed with them on the same terms because things has changed. Or you may be coming home and you do have a family and now you're trying to insert yourself back in as the head of household, but you ain't bringing in no money. So connecting the basic needs such as housing, that career opportunity, and also working about that expungement. Some people are being held back just because they have a record, and that doesn't mean you're a bad individual. We all make mistakes, and that means you should not be judged by that mistake. You should also have the opportunity to do better for yourself in a field that is possibly different than what you possibly went to prison for. It's all about working together, the collaboration, but also within that collaboration, a plan of action that to take heed to make sure we are doing everything we said and not just having a lot of conversations about nothing when we don't got nothing going to show, to be able to bring that civic engagement back to those constituents that we represent.
Walter, how can grassroots initiatives like ghetto therapy influence national change? And the same question would be to you, Kyle, once he's done.
How can grassroots organizations, say that one more time?
How can grassroots initiatives, such as the ghetto therapy initiative that you're doing, how do you think that can help influence national policy changes?
Okay, so what I was thinking was, even with ghetto therapy, and we have a lot of grassroots organizations that we collaborate with. In ghetto therapy, we allow grassroots organizations to facilitate. So it's not just like therapists, there's residents who actually facilitate these sessions. And what happens is we bring out, let's say, a Cleveland Foundation, we bring out a Neighborhoods Connection, we bring out a St. Luke's. We get them to actually participate inside of these sessions to get them on the ground to see other grassroots organizations. So my thing is to get the actual people that's in charge of the funding or just in charge of creating policies to these actual sessions. It's really getting them out. It's really bringing them to the spaces versus them just being in the office. You know what I'm saying? That's the thing of ghetto therapy is when we have these residents facilitate, we invite these people. Even councilman, he comes out to ghetto therapy. We get certain people to come that's in these positions to see what's going on, and that's the way that we can possibly do it.
I do need that therapy, man. I do.
So we're just trying to get them to come out, man, so they can actually see what takes place inside of these communities on the ground.
How does it help Mentally Mango? What do you think Mentally Mango is doing, Kyle, and your organization to try to help spark some national policy changes?
One, when you're dealing in the realm of mental health, you're dealing with people who are in immediate crisis. So it's hard for them to see a future election when they're trying to manage their current situation. To Walt's point, I think for elected officials, your greatest base is your nonprofit local organization, and that's where you should be spending the most of your time. And I know you got to knock on doors, I know we got to fundraise, I know that process, but your everyday should be connecting to some organization within your community. One, because that's where your new base is, if we're talking votes, if we're talking election. Number two, that is where you find out where the resources need to go to get to the people. Because we give chunks of money to umbrella organizations. I'm not saying anything negative about these organizations like the United Way or Boys and Girls Club, and then they have to now, based upon relationships, funnel that money out to local organizations, smaller organizations. You as elected officials from a federal down to a local should be spending time so you know with your own eyes, you see the data. If we get resources, we need to make sure that this organization gets it because they're going to be able to reach people that I'm not going to be able to reach. And when I need to reach those people, I got to call that organization. When I know there's resources on a federal level, because a lot of times we think grants are just local. No, they have federal grants. So on a federal level, if your congresswoman or congressman or whoever that person is can share that information with you. But I think the missing component is a lot of our elected officials miss some of the grassroots organizations that are doing the gritty work and really helping the people. And then that also eliminates, thirdly, this whole notion of people don't know where the resources are. Because if you get them to the people who are doing the services, then they can do the work to get it out. And I'm not talking about the crumbs that's left over after the major nonprofits have eaten up all the money for their operational budget. give these local small nonprofit dollars, organization, operational structure dollars so that they can survive. And now you have a new base of people that you would have never tapped into that are getting services based upon your work.
Anybody want to chime in? No? Good.
No, from that standpoint, I think that I agree. I'm one of the ones who like to work with the community. Social services raised me. Without social services, I wouldn't be the man I am today.
Yeah.
But also with the revamping of social services, they have to build a relationship as too. Because one of the things I deal with, the little bit of resources that I have as far as funding, from splitting it 17 ways, sometimes it's not the equity that's needed to be done. It's just everybody get the equality part, and that sometimes frustrates me. I'm not the one to say everybody get a pair of tennis shoes. No, I need everybody to get a pair of tennis shoes that is your actual size, so you don't have that shoe problem right now. One of the biggest challenges that you deal with in government is a lot of the organizations who you will want them to be able to get involved in it has not been sat at the front table to do it. And one of the hardest things that I deal with, like a challenge that's dear to my heart, is this violence, this gun violence. Now, I've been getting all these social media messages. I've been getting a lot of people reaching out to me about the violence. And when I play devil's advocate, just for people to understand, we look at it from a council standpoint. We just pass an ordinances, and we control how much the money is out there for the mayor to do his job. We give the resources. So you look up and say, hey, we give a community relations board department $4 million out of the general fund. We create the prevention intervention office. We give them $4.5 million. Next thing you know, we came up with a neighborhood safety fund. If it wasn't for council, that fund wouldn't exist. And if it wasn't for council, the $1 million that is crumbs that get out every year that I made an amendment on wouldn't be here available. So when we look at it from a council standpoint, you gave that's $8 million plus $10 million plus additional $1 million. So then we like, where are the organizations that is tapping in to get people off of 30th from doing all this shooting? Where is those individual organizations who's going to go in Grand Valley to make sure we mediate and be proactive in our approach? Everybody understands that the money that you give to safety for the police is to react. They're not going to understand, I think it's going to be something going on. They just don't police that way no more. There's so many different challenges from the police standpoint why they don't police that way, but also understanding that from a council standpoint, we look like we give him more money. I've been at tables where I know that I was able to let it be known that this organization is one of the ones that is doing the work. But then as soon as somebody's bodies drop, it's the government ain't doing something right, council ain't doing nothing right. So I do, at a standpoint like from a leader and a government as a lawmaker for the city, what else can I do? I'm out there, I'm working with Friendly End, I work with University Settlement, I work with all 5 of the CDCs in my community, I'm working with Brother Walt to make sure he has funding to do ghetto therapy, and then you look at it like it's still not enough. So that's for when we reach up to another part of government, and which led to me to be now co-chair of the Cuyahoga County Reentry Coalition, to be able to further get more resources to it. And people don't understand. In the city of Cleveland, without those 10, 11 votes, don't nothing pass. So you can find me on the docket as the only one that voted no against the budget for the city of Cleveland this year, because I don't see nothing in that budget that's going to solve the issues that we are having in these urban neighborhoods that we neglect to turn a blind eye to, and which council get blamed for. So those challenges, those things are really tough challenge, and sometimes it's frustrating, so I pop up at ghetto therapy to just hear from the people, because sometimes you be like, you punch in the air and ain't nothing getting done. And it's tough, and it's tough because when you first go walking in, you don't believe it's this tough. But then when you get in there and people priorities versus your actual belief, it's a dark room sometimes.
Walter, what you deal with a lot of guys, and I asked my questions, so we just ask some freelance stuff here now. Why do you think black folks in general are not involved in voting? Period. No, because I was going to say men, but I'm going to just put everybody in there, because I think there's a whole group of people that's just not involved and don't care, and you talk to them, and from your perspective, I know we all got, I know, to me, I know we're just not meeting people where they at, and you talked about priorities, if you getting right out of prison and some of these other things that you got to deal with on a daily basis, voting is the last thing that you're thinking about doing. So I understand that and we get it, but then you got the people who are pretty much doing okay and they understand it, they just don't care. So from that perspective, what were you getting from the people you talked to? And that's open to more around everybody.
Just systemically, like
Yeah.
just from generationals, you see, like in our community, just being in the central community, public housing and projects, you've seen a grocery store get closed. You've seen a hospital, majority of it get closed. You've seen a high school get closed. You've seen 8 prison-based facilities surrounding this one high school, and you lose hope. And we automatically associate that with presidents. We automatically associate that with government or council, which we're not educated in our schools on exactly what council or government does to a point where like how it works in environment. So we are like generationally broken from the system. You know what I'm saying? From whether it's Public Works Administration, whether it's FHA, Federal Housing Act. These are laws and legislations that kept us oppressed. So we have no faith in government. We have no faith in presidents. We have no faith in the election because for one, we've seen everything closed around us. We've seen us lose all hope. But for two, we don't even know what this stuff is inside of our schools. We're not educated in CMSD on environmental justice. When you think of environmental justice, we think of what is a food desert? I didn't know what that was until I was like 27 or 28 and I was living in one. What is the effects of lead poisoning? What does that do to the body? What is from school to prison pipeline, right? We seeing all of this is in our communities, but we're not educated on how to create change. We're not educated on how to make a sustainable living by creating these changes in our environment. And I didn't learn how to create these changes until I was 30. But we're taught how to go to ROTC. We're taught to go to the Air Force, Army, and Navy. And there's no offense to anyone who went there, but we can make a sustainable living by creating change in our environment. And this is what we're not educated in when it comes to school. Speaking from my experience, and we lose hope. So I think it's from the structures.
What do you think, Kyle?
I'm gonna go to education. I think it's twofold though. I agree with Walt that the curriculum that we teach our kids is set up to make them fail anyway. We're just honest. When we look at education on a wide basis, civic engagement and history should definitely be a part of that curriculum because now we're talking about engagement and why it is important to vote and a different perspective of how to use language to educate people around civic engagement issues. The other part too is in our homes, we should be teaching this, but again, in the homes that I'm talking about and the people we want to engage, the last thing they want to hear is about voting for a white man that they'll never see. When in reality, they're like, we need food now, resources now. And our organization is running out trying to find those resources. And so the conversation becomes a matter of priority too. Do we have these conversations about just getting out to vote or are we meeting people's needs? Because there's no way for me to have both. Let's just be clear. There's no way for me to have both. I cannot, under my own conscience and under the eyes of God, tell people God is going to make your situation better through this vote. That's just not what I can do. But what I can tell people is that God has provided leaders, activists, pastors in our community that can meet the need. But the education in our system, in our school system, again, going back to that levy, without curriculum change, we can give all the money we want, but the outcomes are still going to be the same. And that's the sad part.
Do you guys believe that the type of people that influence us has changed, and that's part of it? Back in the days or past, we had civil rights leaders who basically fought for civil rights and fought for the rights for people to vote, and people felt more of it. Now, the people that are your influencers that we talk about are voting are your rap stars, your Jay-Z's, and some of these other bigger stars, and people look at as influencers to voting, but those people to some degree are not really attached to what it is that our community really needs. So
I can't, because see what we're doing that is we cause division with that. Because I'm going to tell you why. Back in the day, our leaders, our activists were entertainers as well. One of the first activists that I saw was a boxer. You know what I'm saying? A basketball player, right? And let's go to hip hop. Hip hop wasn't always clean. You know what I'm saying? There was battle rap, there was cussing, there was violence. But our influences are based upon our culture. You know what I'm saying? And our culture is not just rappers, not just, we have activists that we look up to, We have spiritual leaders that we look up to. We just don't give that the most highlight. Walt is an activist in our community we look up to. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, he's a hip hop artist, but he's an activist and a leader before he's a hip hop artist. So I think what we have to be careful of, for me, I'm like, whoever the messenger is that can reach the person that I can't reach with the message that we all have is the most important person to deliver that message. And so that's what I think we have to be careful of, because we still have to respect people's views, but we also have to realize that we cannot diminish the last of what we have when it comes to the power in our community. And I think when we talk about the old versus the new, I don't see any difference. I just see a different color on the television, and I see more contrast when it comes to picture and video, but I see the same work and the same effort that was put in the 60s. I see it now amongst our young activists and leaders today.
Really?
I do. And salute to them for doing that.
What would you say, Mike?
As far as vote, I'm going to stay with voting. I agree with you as far as Muhammad Ali, Sammy Davis, as far as entertainers. As far as voting, to me, Ken, I think people be busy. There's been some times I'm like, dang, I'm running to the poll, and we do this for a living. This is what we do for a living. You're a single mother with multiple kids. She don't have time to go to the judge debate, where to bring it to a local level, who you decide as your judge determines if you get 5 years or if you get probation. And you can tell if you listen close enough. But who has? She got 3 jobs. She's trying to provide for her family. And even in Cleveland, we have, to me, Judge Jeff Johnson, who is a convicted felon. To me is a great story. It's a great comeback story. And I pick Jeff over anybody because I know Jeff. Your local people, I know Jeff. And I think Jeff might even be more well-rounded for it because he can relate. He's African American. He's a male. And so I think he did time, so he knows that process. I think people are busy, man, and I think
Convenience is what you're saying.
Say what?
You just said it's inconvenient.
I think people are busy, and so I think meeting them where they're at. I remember waiting in line an hour to vote for President Obama. So having someone who can get you out, who's talking your language, who has your priorities, shared experience, etc., I think is important. But man, there's been some days I done ran in the polling location. Now I know I better vote because they're gonna check my thing on the Democratic. I know you're an everyday person. They might get there a little late, and then they end up not voting, and then they going back home to the house. So I just think if we meet people where they're at, if we give people who look like us who share our priorities, that will also help incentivize people to come out.
Voter fatigue is real too. We got to be honest with that. We've been hearing this is the most important election since 2008. So voter fatigue is real. Let's just be honest. That's what people are saying every year.
What your brothers are saying to you, Terrence? Why you think brothers or people in general are having a hard time getting around voting?
I feel like the conversations I have, a lot of folks just feel like the elected officials are not speaking to them or speaking to issues that impact them.
But you're an elected official. Do you think you're speaking to their issues?
I do, but I'm one of 99. You know what I mean? And I need 50 plus 1 in order to pass legislation that will impact the quality of their life so they can see that impact directly from the government. You know what I'm saying? I think OLBC does. But that may not, the mission of OLBC may not be the mission of the Democratic caucus, right? We'll be on the House floor, for an example, debating on matter that as a whole it may be detrimental to the state of Ohio, but does this really impact black folks? You know what I'm saying? And I think that's probably what creates the apathy, not being spoken to, and then just time and time again, hearing that this, that, and the other can be done, but it never gets done. Yeah, the biggest thing is that from the conversations I have, people just feel like that their elected officials and politicians don't speak to them or speak to issues that impact them, and it just probably comes from just not being able to relate. We all can agree that we've had people that don't look like us, that don't come from neighborhoods like ours, that want to come in our community and tell us what's best for us, what we need, right? With no type of understanding of what it means to walk in our shoes.
What can we do better? What can be done to get more people more actively involved civically? I ain't gonna just say voting, just civically.
We need more collaboration, first of all.
Just in community.
I think we need more collaboration with our nonprofits, our folks on the ground. We just need more collaboration, and I'm not saying that the relationship between the activists and elected officials is adversarial. I just think that we probably sometimes get caught up in our own tasks day to day. We may just not be thinking about how collaboration could be more impactful.
You and Pastor Early are on two different ends. Y'all on the end of having having programs out there, seeking funding, actually out there pounding the pavement to get it done. What do you believe government or just society could do more to support the issues that you guys are doing? Let's start with you, Walt. That will get more people involved. That you think that programs like yours is what's missing in the community. That's that new word. We need more collaboration. Collaboration is no more than people coming in a room, sitting down together and saying we agree to do something. So when we say we need more collaboration, it's okay, we're stopping y'all. So what is it?
I think what we're missing here, not even missing, just not even mentioning, is the power of mainstream media. I think that it just needs to be promoted more because the work is being done. You know what I'm saying? There's me and Cal's and through every city of America, in every ghetto of America that's doing similar work, but it's not promoted more. Catch a guy like me promoting ghetto therapy or mentally mangled through Cal. You may see us putting in the work week in, week out, and on social media we may have a combined of, during the last 2 weeks, over 1,000 likes combined. But when destruction is promoted on the Cleveland Remembrance page, it's 1,000 likes each post. So it's like, what we can do more is, just get more out of mainstream media, more support, more people reposting the work that we're doing with bigger platforms. And it'll just be that easy. Like even in the 90s when Tupac and all those rappers was wearing HBCU gear. Everybody was wearing HBCU gear and black colleges was being pushed to the forefront, and Public Enemy, and you had KRS-One and Q-Tip and those guys was being pushed to the forefront. But now it's not that. You got the other kind of rappers, the drill kill rappers being pushed to the forefront, and that's all due to mainstream media. That's all due to the agenda being pushed to mainstream media. So I just think we underestimating the power of mainstream media, and all we have to do is we can collaborate, but also just continue to promote each other's work.
And even bigger than that, how many people know who their state rep is, who their county councilman is? Everybody knows Richard Starr.
You ain't lying,
but even your elected officials, and I'm gonna put you on the spot, Rep of Church. We have to do a better job too. We have to be responsible. Terrence gives a great story of Councilman Michael Palenzi, representative of Church, and his mother got robbed. Councilman Palenzi came over to their house. Now he didn't do nothing. Came over to their house and sat with them while the police came. I think it's a great story because it still shows to me his activism. He was there. He comforted them in their time of need. So we have to also do our part as elected officials as well. And you say what you want about Michael Palenzi, but he's been elected 30 years, and so stuff like 48, whatever.
Get it right now.
But what was that? Did anybody see that?
He only told it to me, and I don't even know if he wanted me to share it.
It's really the mainstream media part of that things that we can promote. That's a beautiful story.
But Ward 8 know Michael Palenzi, so like his community too. So we have to make sure we hold ourselves accountable.
I agree with Walt on the mainstream media part. I think the other part of it too is I have rested in the fact that we have to learn to respect people's lanes, right? We all play a different role in what we do. And I'm really tired of this notion in the black community that we're not doing nothing and nothing's getting done. I see a lot of collaboration. One of the things I don't see emerging, which is totally different than collaboration. So when we talk about small organizations, small churches, there should be a lot more merging in the black community, just like it is in our other communities. Businesses all around, black people should be merging more. But back to my point, I think I've learned to respect everybody's lane. You could be doing the same thing as somebody else, but you do it a different kind of way. And you are reaching the people that you're reaching, and you're reaching the people that you're reaching. I'm reaching the people I'm supposed to be reaching. And if we add those numbers up, then it'll show that we're actually doing some work. Black folks don't keep data. That becomes the challenge.
That part.
It's a lot of work being done, but we don't have no numbers to prove it. It's not a moment, it's a movement can share with you every individual where they live and how we helped them in the last 2 years, because we've realized that you can't just say what you're doing, you got to be able to show them. And so when we start, as black people start saving our data, then people will stop saying, ain't nothing getting done. Ain't nobody doing that. Shoot, I can show you the numbers. I can show you where the money went. And so that becomes the thing about merging, respecting our lanes, and keeping data. Then we'll be able to prove to people and even ourselves that we're doing way more than what we give ourselves credit for. So,
man, there's a lot, man. As I know we wrap it up, there's just so many things that I think of. Education, You say why people are not voting. I know we have some great grassroots individuals and organizations who doing stuff with little to none resources, but what they have in their pocket. But the thing that gets to me is government is the reason why we have single parent households in African American neighborhoods and urban neighborhoods. It took the fathers out when they started saying your dad can't live with your mom while she's living in the projects or in public housing assistance. So that therefore comes a point where now a mom is raising all these children on her own while still bringing in two to three incomes by working 2 or 3 jobs. Therefore, in certain neighborhoods, you're not going to have that 2-parent household. Then you talk about a poor educational school district. And when you look at it, we had a $113 million deficit in 1994. From 1977 to 1983, 3 school levies failed in the CMSD. Then you go on up until the 95 levy passed, everything failed. So therefore, you turn around and look around and say, we failed all of our levies under Mayor Jane Campbell, under Barbara Bird Bennett, Dr. Sanders. All of our levies failed. Then once we get some motion rolling, we still got a F school district.
Well, so we passed one levy under Bird Bennett.
One, and then we failed that last one. Right. And then she was out. And then we did the last one. So from that standpoint, we got an F school district. We don't have we have a single parent household. Then you got grocery stores closing at an alarming rate in urban neighborhoods. Then you got hospitals closing. Then you have abandoned housing that hasn't been addressed. And next you know, you got people talking about some vote for me. So why would I make time to go vote on something when I don't see nothing happening for my neighborhood? And it's challenging and it's tough for me every day because I know the work, I know the meetings. And I'm to the point like, I'm done asking people. It's all about us needing to take back our neighborhood and do ourselves. If don't nobody want a grocery, if don't nobody want to sell grocery and do grocery business in our neighborhood, well, why we are not merging and working together to get that issue addressed. I have not think about all these think tanks I've been in, all these different meetings I've been in, whether it was elected official or just leaders or activists, people. We're not organized enough to think about what the future needs to be while addressing the immediate issues in our neighborhood. And that's the reason why it's hard to get a council person and a state representative on the same page, because we're trying to get the folks on the ground to get on the same page to be able to get things planned out so we can go at it again, Pastor Early was saying earlier. But it's tough, it's challenging for me to ask somebody to come out and vote. And you look up and say, man, everybody just got shot up on my block. And the police ain't ever show up. This house right here been vacant and then abandoned and had burned up 2 or 3 times, and the city still ain't tore down. It's hard for me to get somebody to vote when I seen that grocery store that I used to go to all the time closed down just because what? Days wanted to build a bigger facility on Chester.
Further up Lakeshore,
and then you want to tear out, and then you want to get rid of a Days up in the Northeast. So when you talk about things going on, it's hard when you try to ask people on the east side or in poor neighborhoods to vote because there's no actionable, tenable deliverables that they understand that is happening in their neighborhood. Aside from all the negatives, there's also positives. So they look at it and say, I've seen Ohio City get developed. I've seen Tremont get developed. I've seen the Far West get developed. I've seen the West Side Market get more money than we have to be able to deliver a grocery store in my neighborhood. But therefore, so it's for a person that's asked, I've been looking for a grocery store, and non-number one source of transportation is the RTA or my feet, and I can't even get a grocery store. But other organizations get $20 million, other neighborhoods can get rebuilt up, and we make every excuse. Now you're saying it's the elected officials' fault. So it's like,
I was going to ask you a question. How much is the elected officials' fault, and some of that is our own fault? How much?
Point is this. If we had that right mindset in the community, now I serve as a neighborhood who have 3,542 CMHA units. Also have 3 additional private public housing estates as well. Imagine if all those folks voted no matter what, the leverage and the power you can have in your own community. They don't see the importance of voting. But imagine if you could say, not just my council person, all elected officials who have access to buy a vote to get things in my neighborhood understand if you don't work in my neighborhood, we can vote you out. Imagine if we organize from that standpoint to hold people accountable on the 3 major things you may want in your neighborhood. You want a grocery store, you want to get housing, and you want an economic development system in place. Imagine if we had that organization to say all these people in public housing, all these people in certain neighborhoods across the city, got together and said, we're going to start voting and organizing together. And we're going to tap on the issues. And if the local government ain't doing it, we're going to take it to the county vote, and our vote shows that.
But isn't voting all about that? Don't you have
But I'm not voting because I am not organized to understand that my vote is important. What just told you that the reason why he got involved in government is because he knew me and seen me on the campaign. And he said, if I get out and help tell people to vote and people start voting, we was able to get Richard Starr elected. So he said, I didn't believe in voting. I don't believe in the national. I don't believe in all that other stuff. I didn't believe in government. I'm from Cleveland. I'm from Outway Case Court. And I just seen this guy that I grew up with, running for office, failed, but then we got together, organized, and got enough votes to get him in office. So that made it reality for him to be involved in it. So now he's holding me accountable, making sure we're doing the things that we need to do. But think about that for all seats alone, if we just wanted to organize and get everybody to really get involved in that, to have an actual item to hold people accountable. And that's not, and I don't think that's the case, and it's because they do not see the importance of that, because they like, look, I'm looking at reality. God just came home from prison. He said, man, I'm sleeping at this person's house, this person. I ain't going to go vote.
Well, I think that to your point, again, I want to always celebrate highlights, is that if it wasn't for you, it wouldn't be a Walt engaged in that process, right? So there's other Walters out there, you know what I'm saying, that are engaged. Again, if we keep our data, we'd be able to prove that shit. But you know what I'm saying? Because then they'll say, well, they didn't vote for the president. But you got people who had never voted for a Richard Starr. You know what I'm saying? I think, again, we miss it sometimes when we should be highlighting those type of things, because the presidential steals those stories when those stories matter, because there's going to be other Walters as well.
Hey, y'all, I want to get us ready to wrap it up. Wade, you have one question you want to throw at him?
I just wanted to speak on why black men don't vote. And Walt had hit something that resonated with me. He said we are generationally broken. And when I speak at these type of things, I'm a barber. I'm a lot of things, but I'm a barber. So I'm speaking as a representative to what they're saying in the barbershop, because I had these conversations, and I'm always the minority for we all need to vote. And the number one thing is, I'm not voting because ain't nothing gonna change. They ain't gonna do nothing for me. But then Brother Hauser said something. We have to educate people like me and Mook in the community, because we have to learn how to connect the dots. Pastor Early said something earlier that connected the dots all the way from the presidency, or maybe Mike did, all the way from the presidency, all the way down to a local level. And when I explained to a young man why he needs to vote the other day, he's a street guy, he's doing his thing out here, I said, if and when you get into some trouble, do you want the person that's sitting on the bench residing over your case to look like me, or to not look like me? Do you want a person like me residing over that's thinking about his young black grandson while I'm residing over your case, or thinking about the riots that they saw on Fox News or CNN the night before? That's why we have to vote. So we have to use I think, the local heroes, the barbershop owners, the pastors, the people in our communities, to help us understand how politics work and make it right. And after I said that to the young man, he said, well, yeah, I want to look like you. Yeah, that's why you need to vote.
So I want to thank everybody for coming out today on the show. As we always do on the show, and we end it, we're going to let everybody say a few words to end the program, whatever's on your mind and heart. Let's start with Hauser over here on this side.
Just in closing, I appreciate you having me, Ken. I appreciate joining you fellas today. And so I think we all just have to do our part. I agree with Pastor Early. We all have to we all might be in different lanes. Richard has 17 of y'all. Church has to have 51 people. At the county, all I have to get is 6. 6 people say they agree. We can create legislation. Everyone has their own way of going about it. Everyone has their own thing. But if we come together, that was the point, Pastor Early, of me getting on council. So I could help rep up church on the state level. I could help City Councilman Richard Starr And so we all have to do our part. And just in closing, I am planning on working on a gun violence prevention department at the county level. I meet with the executive next week to start laying the groundwork for that. I think we all do our part. We definitely make Cleveland a better place.
Hey, well,
I think our environment plays the biggest role in our physical and our mental health. And we should all study our environment in order to create solutions. It wasn't until I studied public works administration, which created a red line, and we knew that the banks were strategically denying African Americans from business and home loans and giving them to white Americans, creating harm on North Homestead, Solon, but also creating the projects, Lower Kingsland, St. Clair. That's when I began to understand like environment played the biggest role in our physical and mental health. And also, why is it that someone can go to prison, do this time, come home and not be able to get a job because of their background, a violent background? I know a guy that went to jail for murder, came home and created a violence prevention program through nonprofit and got a bigger annual budget than the job that denied it. Why is it that we can go to jail and not get a job from a system but create our own system? Why is it that? And that's my thing, but it's based off of environment, just studying everything in my environment. So environment plays the biggest role in our physical and mental health.
Councilman.
Thank you, Ken, for this invite. Thank you, fellas, for taking your time out today to have this discussion, but also to be able to share ideas, agree to disagree, but also get an understanding of what we need to do. And I just want to say thank you, but also let's not let this be the only conversation that we have. Let's also have a planning meeting so we can take action to help our city, because I believe all of us here at this panel love Cleveland, from Cleveland, no matter where we reside at or wherever we work at, on whatever level. But just also just understanding that we are the ones that's holding everything back. And taking a look in the mirror and understanding what we may need to do, having those tough conversations with our colleagues and doing some more lobbying on all type of levels. But also the very most important thing is organized. I've seen some people come organized and get whatever they ask for. And I've seen us come down by ourselves, complain by ourselves, and that's about it. And it's be sad to me. I'm like, when it's stuff that I'll be like, yo, this thing hit the fan. I'm like, yo, who to call? Do I call? What's the 100? What the 200? What the 300 people ready to? So that comes back to that merging, that organizing, that planning, that plot, and then use that strategic plan. So like you use a strategic move to get everything moving in the right direction.
You
got away with words.
We're gonna replay that. What's up with you, Kyle?
I think what's dope right now, I want to highlight this. My last words is this. Salute to all of us that's up here. I remember when we all started in our various fields, and to see where we are now. Hell, I ran against Terrence for state rep. So seeing where we all are right now, I think we should celebrate ourselves as black men, having this much influence, this much reach, this much power, and these many blessings that the Creator has given us. We got to celebrate ourselves for that, man. So my brothers, keep working, keep fighting. I know we all going to collaborate together. I've been sitting here thinking about some things, but just proud of each and every one of y'all, man, for real. And you already know what I'm going to say. It's not a moment, it's a movement.
Up church, close us out, brother.
Yeah, first of all, Ken, I want to just thank you for having me back on the show. It's always a pleasure to be with you. Let me just say that I'm just honored to be up here with there are some brilliant brothers sitting up here, and I think that we have a unique opportunity. And one thing I always say is I have dual roles. One, I'm responsible to the constituents that elected me, but I'm also responsible to the hundreds of thousands of young black men all over the state of Ohio and all over the country that look at all of us and see everything that they want to be and everything that they can be. So that's why it's important that we got to continue to move forward and continue to work together and strive to make our environment and our communities better, because we have to be an example for them, because we all not going to be up here forever.
I'm not.
Yeah. I have 2 more years left in the legislature and then on to the next. But as long as I'm able to, I'll continue to do this work in some capacity. So again, just in close, I just want to thank you for putting this together. And I hope this is not the last conversation, but the first of many. So yeah, appreciate it.
You're the OG up here, man.
Hey, I know this guy, this bunch, and I told you guys this was going to be a good episode with the millennials. These guys had a lot of information, and they had And they're doing some good stuff in our community. And so I'm going to make sure in the description you have all the contacts of where you can get information about all what they're doing, how you can get in contact with them, and how you can continue to support the stuff that they're doing in our community, because it's very important. So with that, I want to just tell everybody thanks again for watching, and our next show.